You well know we're in a series on Sunday mornings entitled Unite, 40 Days of Life-Changing Prayer. And today we want to talk about this subject, reaching our community. Reaching our community. And turn in your Bibles to Titus chapter 3 and verse 14. The letter to Titus chapter 3 and verse 14. If you're not careful as you're turning, it's very easy to miss it. Small little New Testament book right there before Philemon, which happens to be even smaller. If you find 1st and 2nd Timothy, just keep heading right for a little while, but if you're not careful, you blink, you'll miss it. Titus chapter 3 and verse 14, thinking about this subject, reaching our community. Why did God establish the church? Why does the church exist? Why are you here? Why am I here? Why do we come each and every Sunday to worship the Lord? Why did God establish the church? What was His reason? What was His purpose? If you talk to 1,000 different Christians, you may get 1,000 different answers as to why the church exists. Because the truth is, in our day and in our time, we have begun to form and fashion the church after our own personal preferences, our whims, or our desires. If we need our needs met, then we believe the church exists to meet our needs. If we want to be happy, then we believe the church exists to make us happy. And Lord knows there are all sorts of Christians who have all sorts of pet theologies and beliefs that they think are more important than any other theology or belief. And the church ought to teach and encourage and lift up that one special doctrine. I know that you would never do that, but maybe somebody you know, maybe somebody on your row. We think the church exists for so many various reasons. But let me say this morning. The church is not here just to meet your needs. The church is not here to make you happy. The church is not here to be a country club for Christians. The church is not here to give you something to do on your calendar so you make sure you've got a busy schedule. The church is not here to be an aquarium, a holding tank for Christians. The church exists for one reason and for one reason only. The church exists to make disciples of all nations for the glory of God. That's why we exist. And you cannot fulfill that mission or that purpose without reaching people. Now, let me ask you a more specific question. Why did God put Second Baptist Church right here off Moody Road in Warner Robins, Georgia? Why does Second Baptist Church exist? And why have we been placed right here? You see, it's not by accident, it's not chance, circumstance, fate, or luck. In God's divine plan and providence, we are right here at this specific time for a specific reason and a specific purpose. It is not an accident. And the reason we are here is to reach our community with the gospel of Jesus Christ. God put Second Baptist Church in Warner Robins to impact Warner Robins, Georgia, Middle Georgia, Macon, Perry, the surrounding area with the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And Charles Spurgeon once said, "The light that shines the farthest will shine the brightest at home." If we are not impacting our community with the message of the gospel of Christ, what makes us think we can touch the nations for His glory? The church does not exist for me. The church doesn't exist for you. The church exists first and foremost for the glory of God, to uplift and encourage believers, but then to reach the lost with the message of the gospel. And let me say this as a warning. If the church becomes so self-centered and self-focused that it thinks only about its numbers and only about its members and only about your wants or my wishes, that church is in great danger of ceasing to exist altogether. I want to say this morning. This is really the theme of our message. If a church exists only for itself, it will soon cease to exist. If a church exists only for itself, it will soon cease to exist. Paul writes to Pastor Titus, right here in Titus chapter 3 and verse 14. Titus is the pastor on the island of Crete. He's living in tumultuous times. There's persecution that surrounds him, and Crete is a very violent, wicked city. And Paul writes to Titus, giving him instruction as to how to lead the church of God. What should the church be? And here's what Titus chapter 3 and verse 14 says, as Paul writes to Titus, "And let our people also learn to maintain good works, to meet urgent needs, that they may not be unfruitful." Let's read that again. Titus 3 and verse 14. Read it again with me. "And let our people also learn to maintain good works, to meet urgent needs, that they may not be unfruitful." Remember this morning, the power is in God's holy word. And simply put, we are, as a church, to reach our community, to impact those around us, to make a difference right here in Middle Georgia for the sake of the gospel of Jesus Christ. The church should constantly be doing three things. We should be reaching up, we should be reaching in, and we should be reaching out. We should be reaching up in worship. We should be reaching in with spiritual growth and discipleship. We should be reaching out in evangelism and missions. We've said here at Second Baptist Church, our goal is to make disciples of all nations for the glory of God. And here's how we define a disciple. A disciple is someone who will connect, grow, and serve. You will connect by faithfully participating in worship, both corporately each and every week and privately in your personal time with the Lord. You will grow by participating in a Sunday school class, growing in discipleship, and growing as a believer in Jesus Christ. And you will serve in ministry within the church and in mission beyond the church. That's what it means to be a disciple. And that's our task as a church. But we will be doing all of those things all the time, reaching up, reaching in, reaching out, connect, grow, and serve. We are called to make an impact. You know what the word impact means? To make a difference. To alter something, to make a change. You see, if our community isn't different because Second Baptist Church is here, then why are we here? If our community is not changed because this church exists, then why do we exist? Have we missed our purpose or our calling? Well, here the Bible tells us clearly that our people ought to be engaged in meeting needs, in doing good works, in impacting our community so that we would not be unfruitful. You see, I'm not satisfied just doing church. I'm not satisfied just gathering together and then going home. I'm not satisfied just doing church. I want to see our church come together to see impact and life change and spiritual growth and discipleship and maturity and evangelism and salvation and redemption. I want to see this church make a difference right here in our city. That's why God has placed us here. God has called us to take an active role in impacting our community. So what does that look like? Several principles about reaching our community found right here in Titus 3 and verse 14. Four things I want to tell you. First of all, if we're going to impact our community, it takes responsibility. It takes responsibility. Look at the very beginning of this text. "And let our people." Notice those two simple words, our people. Now, we must realize that Paul is writing to Titus. Titus is the pastor of a church. He's talking here about the church. He's talking about the people of God. Let our people. In other words, he is not writing to some select group of super holy Christians. He's not writing to those who've attained a certain level of discipleship and growth. He's not writing to those that have been through boot camp or special ops training. He is writing to the church of God. He's saying this is our responsibility as the people of God. We have a task. We have a mission. And so, this command is not just for pastors. It's not just for deacons. It's not just for Sunday school teachers or children's workers. This command is not just for those who go on visitation or for those who participate in Second Mile Ministries. This command is for the people of God. It is a collective personal pronoun, our. You know what it means? Every single one of us. Every one of us, every member of Second Baptist Church, everyone here today, we have a responsibility. This is the idea of ownership. We ought to own outreach in our community because we come together in worship, but we are scattered to work, to witness, to share the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is a personal responsibility. Do you know then that you have, under God, personal responsibility for those in your neighborhood? You have personal responsibility for those at your job. You have personal responsibility for those in your family. You have personal responsibility for those in your class at school. Paul is making it very clear that believers in Jesus Christ have a personal responsibility to impact people with the gospel, and your sphere of influence is different than my sphere of influence. You will impact people that I will never know or never see. You see, that's the church at work. It is believers taking responsibility. I was talking to a pastor friend of mine several years ago. His name is Nelson Searcy. He was a church planter in New York City, right there in Manhattan, planting a church. Started from the ground up. In 6 years, the Journey Church in New York City grew to over 1,000 people participating in worship every single Sunday. And he and I began talking about what it means to reach people and how you impact your community and how difficult it is in New York really to grow a church and to see God do a work like that. He said, here's something that we've discovered in New York. We have the philosophy at our church, if we don't reach them, no one else will. If we don't reach them, no one else will. He said the problem in most churches, especially those churches in the South, is they have the philosophy, if we don't reach them, some other church will. If we don't reach them, they'll go somewhere else. I would say to you this morning that as the church of God, we are called right here to reach people with the gospel, and we need to have that philosophy. If we don't reach them, they will not be reached. If we don't reach them with the message of the gospel, they are on their way to hell, separated eternally from God. We need to reach people, and we need to believe with all of our heart, if we don't do it, no one else will. It takes responsibility. That's on you. That's on me. That's on Second Baptist Church. It takes responsibility. It is our duty to share the gospel and to impact our community. Number two, it demands resolve. It demands resolve. Let our people also, and here's the word, learn. We're back in school now, right? Summer's over. It's time to learn again. You know as well as I do that if you go to school and you learn something one year and you forget everything you learn over the summer, when you go back to the next grade, it's not going to work, right? Somehow, some way, you have to retain the information that you learn. It's called growth. It's called advancing. It's called knowledge. It's called life. And here Paul says, let our people also, this word's important, learn. The word learn means to be educated. It means to discover. It means to be informed. It means to receive instruction, to find out something. This indicates that it is a process. I love this because Paul is not saying, let our people discover, as in it's an epiphany that just pops into your head one day. It's not saying let our people be surprised by what it means. No, let our people learn. The way you learn something is you do something. You receive instruction and then you participate. Listen, we are to learn what it means to reach those in our community. We're to learn what it means to share the gospel. We're to learn what it means to impact others. We are to learn what it means to reach people with the gospel. You see, this indicates a desire among the people of God. A desire to grow, to learn, to reach out, and to make an impact. This takes commitment. It doesn't happen by accident. You know, the natural tendency of the church is to focus on itself, not others. The natural tendency of the church is to focus on its own people, not the people around it. You know why that is? Because the natural tendency of a person is to be self-centered and focused, not others-centered and focused. And so you, as a believer in Jesus Christ, must constantly, each day, die to self, live in the Spirit, focus on God, and focus on others. And the church, we have to be relentless in our pursuit of this goal. We have to consistently and continually focus our efforts and our energies beyond us, not among us. Because it is very, very easy to become self-focused and self-centered, a church that only exists for himself. It is not natural for a church to be outward-focused. It's natural for us to be inward-focused. But I want you to understand, this is not some one-sermon deal on the part of your pastor. I'm not just mentioning this today and then down the road, maybe a year or two from now, we mention it again. No, this has to be part of the DNA of our church, is we are here to make an impact. We will make a difference in this city. We will love our community. We will reach people with the gospel. It has to be a part of your life. I mean, think about it like this. It demands resolve. When I hear that word resolve, I think of diet and exercise. Diet and exercise. These are words that ought not to be spoken in church. Amen? Especially when you were just in Sunday school eating donuts. Diet and exercise. Diet and exercise. Now, how do diets and exercise work? You can't be on a diet 1 week out of the year and expect to lose weight. You can't exercise 1 day every quarter and expect to be in shape. It takes consistency. It takes effort. It takes discipline, and it takes time. If you want to get in shape, the secret is diet and exercise, but it has to be regular. It has to be consistent, and in order to do that, it demands resolve. What does that mean, resolve? You've got to be committed. You've got to make it a priority. It's got to matter to you. Just like the church of God ought to resolve that we are here for a purpose, to reach our city, to impact our community. And it takes effort, it takes energy, it takes discipline, it takes commitment. But if we don't do it, no one else will. And we resolve that our church is right here for a reason, and we will impact this city. You can't do it one Sunday out of the year. You can't do it with Wow Wednesdays just in the month of July. You can't do it with Mission 1-8 month when we're all over the world last month in July. It has to be part of our DNA, our culture, who we are each and every moment of the day. The only way that happens is if it's a part of your life. It demands resolve, effort, energy, consistency, and discipline. The Christian life takes discipline and growth. The Christian life demands resolve, effort, and energy. And as a church, you want to know what it's like as a church when you really focus on reaching your community? Do you want to know what it's like? I'm going to be honest with you. It's ugly, it's messy, it's difficult, and it's costly. If we really want to reach our community, it costs money, it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, and you reach people that don't have their lives exactly together. And when you do, they come into your church, and you've got people in your church whose lives aren't together. And you say, what do we do with them? You disciple them. You grow them up in the faith. You teach them the Word. We will be a church that reaches out to our community to reach people who need Jesus. Aren't you thankful that God reached out to you? You didn't have it all together, no matter how great you think you were. You didn't have it all together when He reached out to you. You were a mess. But He redeemed you. He rescued you. It demands resolve. It takes responsibility. It demands resolve. Number 3, it builds relationships. It builds relationships. I love this phrase. Our people must also learn, here it is, to maintain good works to meet urgent needs. What's he talking about? Good works. Meeting needs. The word maintain there literally means to engage in good works. To show love to others. To meet pressing needs. That word maintain, that word meet, that word engage, those are personal relational words. They are not isolated or sterile. It gives the idea that you and I are to be building relationships with other people so that we might meet their needs, so that we might introduce them to Jesus. We ought to be intentional about building relationships with people that don't know Christ so we can lead them into a relationship where they do know Christ. We must build relationships with people who need Jesus. Notice this now. Maintain good deeds. This is what we're called to do as a church. This is what our people are called to do good to those around us, to do what? To meet urgent needs. What is the greatest need that anyone encounters in life? The greatest need that you and I will ever have is our need for Jesus. That's our greatest need. And you and I are called then as a church to reach out to others, to do good works, to meet needs so that we can share the message of the gospel of Christ. Now look at it like this. I'm not preaching a social gospel this morning. There are many churches that believe if we go to a soup kitchen and feed them soup, we've done our job. If we provide backpacks for children at a certain time, we've done our job. If we give them food or clothes, that we've done our job. If we show them love in these ways, practically, we've done our job. That's part of it, but that's not all of it. We're to show love. We're to meet needs. We're to maintain good works with the result of the goal of building relationships and sharing the message of the gospel so they might be spiritually transformed. I mean, what good does it? What good is it if we fill somebody's belly but don't tell them about Christ who can fill their life? What does it matter if we give them clothes on their back if we don't see that they're transformed by the gospel and clothed in righteousness? We must meet urgent needs. You see this throughout the New Testament, the ministry of Jesus. What did he do? Jesus has the multitude sit down and he begins to break bread and loaves of fishes and feeds over 5,000 men, probably 15,000, 20,000 people there that day. And then what does he do after that? He teaches them. You see, he meets a physical need. You see it all through the New Testament as he works. He performs a miracle. The miracles were never for show. It was not a magic show. It wasn't entertainment. It was always for a purpose. The purpose was always to get somebody to the gospel. And that's what we're called to do. We're called to meet needs, to love people, to maintain good works, to build those relationships so we can get someone to the gospel. You see, our community needs more than a mail out, more than an advertisement, more than a TV program or a radio show. They need to see real people who love Jesus right in front of them every day. That's you and that's me. I've challenged you. Over the time that I've been here, I've challenged you regularly. I want you to find somebody that doesn't know Jesus. Pour your life into them. Lead them to Christ and bring them here. I told you 4 things simply. You need to identify the people in your life that God has placed there that need Christ. You need to invest in their lives, invite them to dinner, take them to lunch, love on them and their family. You need to introduce them to Jesus and invite them to church. It's really simple. And right now, you know people in your sphere of influence, whether it's at work, at school, at home, at play, whatever it is. You know people that need Jesus. God's got you as a missionary right there where you are. Share the message of the gospel. It builds relationships. Let me ask you a question. How many friends do you have that don't know Jesus? You see, I'm not asking that question so that you act like those that don't know Jesus, but so you love those that don't know Jesus. We've built this barrier. We've become so isolated because we want to be holy and separate, and I understand that. But God never intended us to be so holy that we can't reach out to those that need to hear the gospel. He never intended us to be so separate that we have no influence. He's called us to be salt and light. It builds relationships. Number 4, it brings reward. It brings reward. Let our people also maintain good works, meet urgent needs. Here's the phrase, that they may not be unfruitful. That they may not be unfruitful. Do you remember in the New Testament when Jesus walked by a fig tree and cursed the fig tree because it wasn't bearing fruit? Jesus wasn't just mad at a fig tree that day. He's teaching a lesson. He's making a point. And the point should be utterly clear to you and to me. When you as a believer are unfruitful, when we as a church are unfruitful, we are not pleasing to the Lord. So the Bible tells us that we've been called to bear fruit. What does that mean? Spiritual fruit? The fruit of the Spirit? Yes. Spiritual fruit, seeing lives changed by the gospel? Absolutely. Spiritual fruit. Growing in discipleship, reaching out to others, bringing God glory. We are to be fruitful, but what happens when we don't meet urgent needs? What happens when we don't maintain good works? What happens when we aren't focused on others? We're only focused on ourselves. Do you see what happens? We are unfruitful. Just like that fig tree Jesus cursed. We don't bear fruit. Now let's flip it around. So as we come to meet urgent needs, as we maintain good works, as we impact our community and share the gospel with others, what's the opposite of that? The opposite is not being unfruitful, which is being fruitful, seeing spiritual growth, seeing life, seeing the seeds that we plant germinate and begin to grow into real, genuine faith, seeing our community impacted by the gospel, seeing a student saved, seeing a coworker come to Christ, seeing a marriage restored, seeing spiritual fruit as a result of our faithfulness. That's what we're called to see. That's what we're called to do. So that we will not be unfruitful, to state it positively, so that we will bear fruit. Some of the fondest memories I have as a teenager is what I called my football workout in the summers. My football workout in the summers was harvesting, planting, selling watermelons. I would spend a good bit of time in the summer on my granddaddy's farm off of Highway 96, and time would come where it was harvest time. And I got to be the guy on the ground who cut the vine and tossed the watermelon up on the truck, and a buddy of mine was up on the truck stacking. And that was my football workout. I figured it was better than any football workout anybody else ever had. And it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. We'd get out there early in the mornings, we'd toss watermelons, we'd walk the rows, we'd pick corn. You have a sack on your shoulder, you pick corn, you walk back to the truck, you dump it, and you keep going. When we had a full truck, we'd take it to the farmer's market there in Macon, and I'd spend the rest of the day at the farmer's market selling Silver Queen corn, pink-eyed purple hull peas, zipper peas, cantaloupes, and watermelons. And my lunch those days when I was at the Macon farmer's market was $1 equaled 4 peaches. And I'm telling you, those were the best peaches I ever put in my mouth. Right there at my stand, just catty-corner to me, was somebody who grew, I think these peaches came from heaven. They were so good, grew peaches, and they were just $1. So when I started selling something, I had $1, and I could eat 4 peaches. They were $0.25 apiece. And I remember those days sitting there selling watermelons and peas and corn and all sorts of stuff there at the Macon Farmers Market. And I remember that hard work there in the field. And you want to know, one of the reasons I look back and I think, man, those are some of my fondest memories. It's not because farming watermelons is easy. It's not because being a farmer is easy. And it's not because I can remember driving down Interstate 75 or Highway 247 trying to get up to the Macon Farmers Market, and that truck was so loaded down it was leaning in the back, and the tires were so flat because it was leaning in the back. I was wibbling and wobbling all over the road trying to get there. I mean, it was crazy. It was awesome, though, and the reason I loved it was this. It was fruitful. All kinds of effort, all kinds of energy, all kinds of work, all kinds of discipline, all kinds of, just sweat. But it was fruitful. It was messy. Sometimes it was ugly. And it was hard. But it was fruitful. I'll never forget one day I came back from the farmer's market and began to hand my granddaddy a stack of money. I think we got over $100 that day or something. And he said, "You keep it today." Boy, that was fruitful. And to me, that's a small picture of what God's called us to do as a church. He says the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. There is a field. There's a lot of work to be done. It's dirty, it's ugly, it's messy, but it is so very essential. It brings reward. It bears much fruit. And we need to remember what Jesus says in John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you abide in me, you will bear much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. I'm telling you, if we get on His agenda, if we get on His plan, if we decide that we're going to follow this and say, God, whatever it takes, we want to follow you. If we don't reach Him, nobody else will. I'm telling you, it may be difficult, may be a lot of work, but you and I will be blessed, and our church will be blessed as a result. I'm going to ask